The PKE meter. It's the first tool a Ghostbuster uses on any paranormal investigation, because before you can bust a ghost, you gotta find it first. And no ghost can avoid the PKE's detection. Invented by Dr. Egon Spengler when he was still a professor at Columbia University, the psychokinetic energy meter became a staple in his next career as a Ghostbuster, allowing the user to determine if an ectoplasmic manifestation is or was in the area. But how does it work? Well, when someone dies, they're not completely gone. They leave a piece of themselves behind, like my dead father, who left behind $100,000 of gambling debt and a secret family in another state. But the dead also leave behind PKE, or psychokinetic energy. PKE can negatively charge the particles around it to manifest itself in a variety of forms, such as mist, orbs, or creepy old dudes in robes who stalk teenage boys from beyond the grave. These negatively charged particles ionize the other particles in the air around them. When a spook needs to get its manifest on real fast, the ionization of atoms occurs so rapidly that neutrons are ejected. This is called free neutron flux. The PKE meter measures these negatively charged ions and free neutron flux, allowing a Ghostbuster to track a ghost that has recently materialized, like breadcrumbs from beyond the grave, or a black light in the sleazy motel room of the afterlife. These negatively charged ions and ejected neutrons pass through a series of sensors on the back of the PKE meter. These sensors are tubes containing platinum electrodes and boron trifluoride, which collide with the incoming particles, creating a bukkake of charged particles that are measured and output as a pulse of current to an audio amplifier and rate meter. The PKE meter then displays the output as a series of audio beeps, flashing LEDs, and expanding wings. When operating the PKE meter, you first must turn it on by sliding the activation switch at the base of the handle. Once on, the PKE meter functions in 3 different modes. Mute. If properly shut down, this should be the default setting when the PKE is activated, as indicated by the slide switch in the center position as well as the center red indicator light. In this mode, the visual and audio indicators are off. Low ionization. This setting is activated when the slide switch is on the left, as indicated by the yellow light. This setting is best used indoors, where concentrations of ions are low, typically between 100 to 300 ions per cubic centimeter. High ionization. This setting is activated when the slide switch is on the right, as indicated by the green light. This setting is more effective in outdoor locations, where ion concentrations often range from 1,500 to 2,000 ions per cubic centimeter. High ionization allows the PKE meter to account for environmental ions and thus give a more accurate reading. In later models, the PKE was given a 4th mode to be used when tracking manifestations with dangerous levels of PKE. These highly charged particles can be temporarily stored within the PKE meter and redirected through the wings as a psychokinetic taser, giving a Ghostbuster a short-term defensive tool if they are unable to use a proton pack. This mode is activated by flipping a toggle switch located on the back of the PKE meter. Be careful when using this mode. While the PKE taser is painful to ghosts, it can be deadly to the living. This wasn't the only modification made to the PKE meter. After the interdimensional cross-rip of 1984, Dr. Peter Venkman was able to get all the EPA charges and lawsuits dropped by making a backroom deal with the U.S. government, pimping out Egon Spengler as a consultant for the military, where he modified the PKE meter to detect things other than ghosts, such as energy signatures from enemy technology and even potential alien life forms. After selecting a proper mode, the PKE meter is operated much like a radiation detector by slowly orienting the device in different directions until a spike is detected. This will be indicated by movement of the sensor wings as well as audible beeps and flashing LEDs. The closer you get to the manifestation, the higher the wings, and the faster the beeps and flashes, reaching maximum levels when the PKE meter looks like a disco crucifix. The PKE meter can also be paired with the ecto goggles for a more robust and immersive method of detection. What are ecto goggles? Well, that's a lesson for another day. Until then,
Proton Pack. We all know it. We all love it.
The iconic Ghostbuster technology was invented by founding members Dr. Egon Spengler and Dr. Ray Stantz in the fall of 1984, combining cutting-edge science with fringe supernatural research and forever creating cognitive dissonance in atheists and theists alike. But how does it work? The proton pack is an unlicensed nuclear accelerator powered by the radioactive isotope carbon-14, and just like a Twinkie, has a half-life of 5,730 years. These power cells are contained within the fuel rods inside the booster core, fueling both the proton pack and the nightmares of countless environmental protection agents. The fuel rods provide power to the accentuators, which regulates that power to the primary power distributor, or PPD, distributing it to the ion arm, hydrogen gas actuator, and flux capacitor. Wait, flux capacitor? Silly me. I'm getting my iconic 1980s technology mixed up. I meant cyclotron. Although some speculate that while visiting the American College of Technical Science and Complicated Math, Dr. Spengler and Dr. Stantz acquired the cobalt-14 fuel rods used in the original 4 proton packs from Dr. Emmett Brown, after he discovered they didn't provide the sufficient 1.21 gigawatts required to power his own invention. But back to the proton pack. The ion arm is the pack's brain, housing the CPU that monitors the production of protons. The hydrogen is stored within 2 refillable containers that each hold 20 liters of gas. The PPD provides power to the hydrogen gas actuator, sucking gas into the generator where it's ionized and is sent to the cyclotron. The cyclotron is powered by the PPD, delivering power simultaneously through the injectors that connect to the terminal at the bottom of the cyclotron and directly into the terminal at the top. Once the ionized hydrogen is pumped into the cyclotron, an oscillator alternates the current between 2 electrodes so that the negatively charged hydrogen is attracted to the positive electrode and repelled by the negative one, causing the particle to spiral faster and faster, as indicated by the cyclotron lights, stripping the electrons and sending an accelerated proton to the emitter, officially known as the neutrino wand. The neutrino wand cannot fire a particle stream until 3 switches are activated. The first switch turns on the oscillator, but does not pull protons from the cyclotron. For that to happen, the negative electromagnets within the wand must be activated by the second switch. These attract the protons from the cyclotron into the wand, but prevent them from discharging out the barrel. The third switch is a safety, preventing accidental discharge of the proton streams. Only when all 3 switches are activated is the user able to fire the proton stream. This is done by pressing the intensify trigger, reversing the polarity of the electromagnets within the wand, as well as activating a third positively charged magnet at the rear, propelling the protons forward and discharging out the barrel at an incredible velocity. The proton stream, in reality, isn't a single stream, but a 2-way energy exchange, with protons shooting out and a counterflow of particles being pulled back in. But why protons? Well, after something dies, be it human, animal, plant, and on rare occasions large cultural fads like disco or grunge, it leaves behind PKE, or psychokinetic energy. PKE has the ability to negatively charge the particles around it in order to manifest and spook the shit out of you. Let's take a look at this hydrogen atom. It consists of 1 proton and 1 electron. When it comes into contact with PKE, it is ionized, causing it to attract other ions and bond with them. Depending on the rate of attraction, it can manifest as anything, from a simple mist to shoeless Joe Jackson in a cornfield. When these apparitions interact with the physical world, they often leave behind a byproduct of negatively charged ionized particles known as ectoplasm, or as the kids call it these days, slime. This is when the protons come into play. Like an emotionally damaged individual, the negatively charged ghosts are attracted to their positively charged polar opposite, which means when a positively charged proton makes contact with the bonded negatively charged ions of a ghost, it attracts the balanced electron of the PKE, breaking down the psychokinetic energy, allowing that ghost to be weakened and eventually ensnared, like a toxic codependent relationship, where it can be contained within a ghost trap. The Ghost Trap. This piece of equipment provides the ABC of ghost busting. Always be closing. That's right, this bad boy is for closers only. Sure, the proton pack starts the fight, but the ghost trap ends it. Invented by Dr. Egon Spengler and Dr. Ray Stantz in the fall of 1984, the ghost trap temporarily captures ghosts for removal and transport.
How does it work?
Well, unlike the proton pack, the trap is not powered by a radioactive isotope. Instead, it has a rechargeable battery located in the rear of the trap. The activation switch delivers power to the trap's main housing, as well as the trigger pedal, but does not deliver power to the inner cartridge. As a safety measure, the trap's default mode is set to off, which means even if the activation switch is on, the cartridge is cut off from power, preventing it from opening. Only when it is set to trap will the main housing feed power to the inner cartridge, like a pregnant mother to her unborn child, if that child devoured souls. This is achieved by a simple two-step process. Literally, you step twice. Step 1. Press the pedal once. This will swing open the trap like an upside-down set of Bombay doors. But rather than bombs coming out, ghosts get sucked in. However, the trap doors will remain open until Step 2, pressing the pedal again. Do not look directly into the open cartridge as it pulls in the ghost. The eyes are the windows to the soul, and this bad boy will suck your soul right out. Only politicians and social media influencers are immune, as they're already dead inside. Once the doors are closed, the trap will appear to be smoking. But don't worry, the trap is not hot. As a matter of fact, it's not even smoke. It's actually the ghost's remaining PKE left behind in the form of a mist, like one last fart after death, lost in the wind. While most of the world call it the ghost trap, it technically goes by a different name. No, not thirst trap, although that does attract a different kind of creepy apparition. No, its actual name is muon trap. Why? Because technically it does not trap ghosts, it traps the muons around them. What's a muon? Well, when the accelerated protons from a neutronoon collide with the negatively charged ions of a ghost, it produces muons, a negatively charged particle with a mass over 200 times greater than an electron. These dense muons weight the ghost down, like a deadbeat boyfriend without a job, finding itself entangled in a prison of its own making and contained within the field of ionized radiation emitted from the trap. This is known as a conic entrapment field. Because of the density of muons, this cone can maintain its integrity undisturbed by chaotic conditions found in the Pacific Northwest, be it weather, earthquakes, or caffeinated hipsters. The cone is steered by hollow lasers and can be adjusted using the cone adjustment dial.
Rotate clockwise to increase
cone size and rotate counterclockwise to decrease the cone size. There is also the preset dial, which contains a selection of cone presets. A wider cone will entrap spooks over a larger area, but dilute the entrapment performance, whereas a narrow, more focused cone will entrap higher charged entities but require more precision in guiding them into it. Once a ghost is contained within the trap, the yellow bar graph will indicate the level of NRADs. Many rookies confuse NRADs, however, stand for net radiation absorption dosage per second. When PKE, or psychokinetic energy, is contained within the conic entrapment field, the muon trap needs to shield itself, and you, from that radiation. The more PKE energy that is trapped, the more radiation is produced. The more radiation the trap must shield, the more power it drains. If a trap vibrates, shakes, or has electric discharge after successful entrapment of a ghost, then the PKE level is approaching the NRAD shielding limits, as indicated by a maximized yellow bar graph. To help manage all these complex variables, the trap has controls located on the front panel. Sync. This syncs the inner cartridge and the main housing to make sure they are successfully connected. The NRAD switch allows you to slide between 3 different settings. Manual, which allows you to manually adjust the overall spectral radiation absorption limit using the NRAD's dial. The higher the limit, or the more amount of
PKE that can be contained
in the trap, the shorter the storage time before the battery is drained. Preset lets you select the multiple NRAD's presets using the dial. And Guard Lock, which overrides all settings and locks the shielding limit to maximum. The Mode Select switch toggles between 4 different operating modes. Off. As shown earlier, this cuts off the power to the inner cartridge, preventing the trigger pedal from opening it. Trap. This allows power to the cartridge so it can open and entrap a ghost after each pedal press. Auto Detect function, which auto-detects the PKE level above the open trap and automatically converts to the proper NRAD shielding levels. While this is easier to use than trap mode, it has a slower entrapment performance. And lastly, there is Trap plus Guard. This function can be only used once, like a hall pass from your spouse, locking the cartridge at maximum containment power levels after a single pedal press, and entrapment. This is only for emergencies, when dealing with a Class 5 apparition or higher. The trap can only be used again after it has been emptied into the containment unit. What is the containment unit?
The containment unit. It is the Alcatraz for ghosts, a shiny red prison where the spirits never escape. Except, of course, that one time where, they all escape, but we don't talk about that day. As a matter of fact, we're proud to say there has not been a single containment breach or malfunction at any Ghostbusters franchise since that fateful day. Invented by Dr. Egon Spengler and Dr. Ray Stantz in the fall of 1984, the Ecto Containment Unit is a long-term storage facility for ghosts. But how does it work? With lasers. A laser grid, to be more accurate. But why lasers? Well, everything is composed of protons or neutrons, even ghosts. These protons and neutrons are made up of 3 quarks, and those quarks are bound together by a field of virtual particles called gluons, which are constantly popping in and out of existence as they travel back and forth between different dimensions. This popping in and out is what creates the mass of all things as we know it, due to the energy produced by these fluctuations known as a quantum vacuum, not to be confused with a quantum leap, which is when a person can supposedly time travel within their own lifetime. This is where the laser grid comes into play. When lasers make constant contact with psychokinetic energy, or PKE, they disrupt the gluons, decelerating the quantum vacuum fluctuations to a nearly frozen stasis, causing the gluons that have popped out of existence to stay out of existence. This allows us to indefinitely contain a ghost for 2 reasons. 1, it places the ghost within a sort of pocket dimension, where they exist neither fully in our dimension nor in the nearest parallel one. Think of it as a drunk tank holding cell for disorderly souls. And 2, with most of the gluons outside of our dimension, it significantly shrinks the mass of contained ghosts, allowing us to pack a lot of spooks into a finite space, like sardines in a can, screenwriters in a Starbucks, or passengers flying in coach. Sure, the contained ghosts stay in stasis, they must always remain in constant contact with a laser. Should the contact be broken, the psychokinetic energy would instantly return to its full mass and explode out of the box, like a virgin on prom night, expanding out of control and causing irreparable damage to everything around it. To prevent this from happening, the containment unit uses multiple lasers in a crisscross pattern called the laser containment grid. Like a professional athlete, this containment system takes a lot of juice, which is why it's connected directly to the city electrical grid in which it is located. On the rare occasion of a citywide power failure, the containment unit has several redundancies in the form of backup generators connected directly to city gas lines. After a ghost is contained within a muon trap, it needs to be transferred into the containment unit. This must be done via an exact protocol, or risk having the ghost escape back into the physical plane. Step 1. Unlock the system. To unlock the containment chute, you pull out to the right, then rotate up. Step 2. Insert the trap. Insert the muon trap into the chute. The red system engage light will turn on. This means the inner cartridge is now successfully locked, drawing its power from the grid and not from the trap's battery. Step 3. Release. With the canister locked, you can now remove it from the trap's main housing. This is done by pressing the canister release button at the top of the trap's handle. Step 4. Lock the system. Slide out the trap's main housing and lock the chute by rotating down and pressing to the left. Step 5. Set your entry grid. Press the entry grid input. This prepares the laser grid for a new arrival. Step 6. Neutralize your field. Press the field neutralizer. This neutralizes the entrapment field within the canister and activates an electromagnet at the rear of the containment unit, which pulls the muons, and thus the ghost, out of the canister and into the laser grid, where the ghosts are ensnared, while the dense muons continue through to the magnet. Step 7. When the light is green, the trap is clean. Pull the release lever down. This turns off the electromagnet and, if necessary, activates a fresh laser grid for the next transfer of ectoplasmic inmates. When this is done, the green containment light will turn on, indicating another successful containment. And with that, you've successfully busted a ghost. If you have a ghost that needs busting, who you gonna call?